Well, welcome back to the Live Unconquered Podcast. I'm Adam Davis, joined by my friend, AK Dozanti from Lifesaver Wellness. AK, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm a little on the struggle bus, but the struggle bus has fuel. The rubber is on the road, and we're about to put it in gear. So, how are you?
Better than I was last week. How about that? Lord have mercy.
Well,
Just
be good.
seasonal stuff, but I'm good. I'm very, very grateful today and blessed in many ways. So we were what were we talking about? We were talking about
Well, we
how
both had to clean off our glasses because they were, I know mine
yeah,
were
clarity and
filthy.
filter the
And
focus. Yeah.
and then we both went, wow, I can see better. We were going over some of the question submissions and then things just started to come together. We started to talk about how we could see better, we had better clarity, and then we were like, oh, that one question that all ties it together. So yeah, I think should we just go into the question?
Hey, I
I like it.
think that is probably, yes, that's the direction we should go. Absolutely. Do you
All
want
right.
to tell them the question? Why don't you read the
I
question?
absolutely. And like I said, this is a no frills situation. We are just winging this. This is just real authentic conversation. So
Well,
this is
let me
an
before
anonymous
you yeah
question.
before you read the question, let
Yes,
me
sir.
pose something to those who are watching or listening to this. And I don't know exactly which question you're going to read, but let me pose a question to you today, those who are watching and listening to this. How different would your life be if you had a different lens through which to filter your life and all the circumstances that come with it? Whether it is the work you do as a first responder and the things that you see and witness, or marriage, or relationships, or parenting, or finances, or politics, hello,
Ugh.
or
Hmm.
the economy, or global adversity, whatever it
Right.
is, how different would things be if you had a different lens to look to filter it through? So now, just for y'all to be thinking on that as AK
Hmm.
asks this question and we start diving in.
Yeah. Wow. That's, I think we need like just a second to let the dust settle on that because that is some big awareness. But okay, so this is an anonymous question,
Yep.
and it says, do you think ACEs, and just for clarity for the listeners, if you don't know what ACEs are, it's adverse childhood experiences. You can look it up. It's 10 questions. It gives you a score, and it's based on different childhood experiences that might affect or that almost certainly do affect things later in life, like your physical health, outcomes of socioeconomic status, things like that. So things like if you had an addict in the house or your
Hmm.
parents were abusive or spoke in a harsh way or went to jail or whatever. So do you think ACEs impact LEO, so law enforcement officers, differently than the average person, or that those aggregates make us more vulnerable to burnout later in our careers?
Hmm. That's
Holy
a good
cow.
question. That's a good question. Oh my goodness.
So we had read that question, and then right before we started to hop on here, we were cleaning off our glasses, and Mr. Davis said, "Oh, that's it. It changes our filter. ACEs change our filter. Our experiences in our younger life change the way we see everything." So I'll
Hmm.
let you say your own words from here, but yeah, it
I
it's
was,
it's absolutely true.
yeah, it's and I was hoping that you would go first because you were the master on teaching about burnout and phenomenal at it. I think for me, and I wrote a post last night on Facebook, and this is kind of just top of mind right now. But I wrote a post last night on Facebook, and it was a vulnerable post, but that's typically the stuff I put out. Um, and it sounds a little weird for those who don't understand this, but if you know my story, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, not by family members, it was neighbor and church people. Um, but how, as a child, I started seeing things, how the filter and the negative self talk. The number one, not good enough. Do you
Mhm.
know how much muscle it takes to lift pursuing a dream when every day you don't feel good enough? And so I have never, well, since the time I was a kid, have not believed that I was worthy of good things. I have never believed I was good enough for anything. I'm
Mhm.
42 years old. I show up for my family. I don't go to work mainly because I work from home, but I don't go to work and then go hang out at bars or honky tonks and get drunk and then, all the things. I work and I do everything I can to spend time with my family. I'm telling you this stuff for a reason. I have been a horrible person in the past, but even then I fought to prioritize my family, and I still don't feel like a good father or a good husband. I don't. I've hunted, I've fished, I've worked on cars, I've deadlift, 500 pounds, bench pressed over 300. I have shot guns and scored well, been in foot chases and been in fights, and I still don't feel like a man because it's all filtered through the lies of childhood trauma or adverse childhood experiences. And
Mhm.
I feel like if, at a very extreme level, we filter the things that we experience on the job in law enforcement or really any first responder, um, it could have an impact on us because if you already don't feel good enough, and let's say you don't feel good enough, maybe that's a thought that you have, or you don't feel like you're worthy of good things or undeserving of love or undeserving of abundance or whatever. Like you have this lifelong burden and this uh, lie that you have this curse on you that you have to struggle because this is just your sentence in life.
Mhm.
Well, then when you get on the job and you see these things, you kind of start processing it through those filters
Right.
as opposed to a healthy filter.
Right.
And
It's problem based, not solution based.
it is, you see it through a complete, and people that have never been through that, and there's many who haven't, be thankful if you see things different. Be thankful if you can't comprehend what I'm talking about. But
Mhm.
what I'm talking about is for people, and there's a lot of, like, there was a study that was done, it's like 40% of first responders had some form of childhood abuse, which is mind-boggling. But when you begin to understand why you think the way you do, the negative self-talk and how it's impacting you, and how you could begin to change literally things in your life when you change how you're talking to yourself and how you can change how you see things. I think it mitigates burnout. I think it
Mhm.
mitigates the impact that the trauma on the job could have on you. but I also think that it positions you to live a life that is abundant in every way. And here's what I mean by that. Jesus said in John 10:10, he said, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. We settle for just life.
Hmm.
And I think that one of the greatest unspoken sins is not living up to our potential and not dealing with or addressing adverse childhood experiences or any form of childhood trauma and allowing healing to take place and allowing a shift in how we talk to ourselves and allowing a new belief system to take place. I am lovable. I am good enough. I am worthy and deserving of good things. And begin to think like that based on a fundamental belief system that supports that. I think it mitigates burnout and a whole lot more. I think it
Well,
positions you to
yeah.
understand you are worthy of rest. You deserve rest. You are not bound to be um, a slave to your debt for the rest of your life. You can make better decisions. You don't have to self sabotage. So, for me personally, it's understanding that I wasn't aware. I think you have to become aware first, but I wasn't aware of how that junk was affecting me and that it was just a filter of how I was processing things. So
Yeah.
anyway, I could probably just keep talking the whole time on that, but I will pause
Well,
and ask for
but if
you
you
to please give your input.
but if you don't know what you don't know, like if you don't see it, you don't even know that that stuff isn't normal. Or maybe you have a sense that it's not normal, but like,
Yeah,
how do you have anything to contrast it to? Because that's your lived experience, right?
sure.
Um, but I think, the first part or the first step to really starting all of this is to be honest with yourself that maybe you do want to be loved. You do want to have real connections with people. You do want to enjoy your life. And I think what happens when we start to go down the rabbit hole of burning out, um, is we get cynical. And it's just we distance ourselves from what we actually want. And we say, well,
Hmm.
because we have this underlying belief that we're not worth it.
Yeah.
And we say, well, I don't need that. That's soft. That's, I just need to go to work, provide for my family, and just stay on the grind, just stay in the hustle. Well, how fulfilling is that? Like you might feel somewhat accomplished at the end of the day, but you're going to be alone doing it.
Yeah.
So the first step, I think, is to be honest with yourself about what do you actually want, not what do you put on, not what you put on social media. Right? Not what you put out to the world. What do you want on the inside? Like, so I think that's absolutely number one. And to go back to the question, do ACEs impact LEOs differently than the average person? I don't know that they do until you're actually in that job. So the now we'll go like a little more maybe academic or like, but when you look at like PTSD, for example, if you have post-traumatic stress from your childhood, then you go into a job where you are making yourself vulnerable and susceptible to more trauma. You are
Hmm.
much more vulnerable and susceptible to more PTS. And that's the moral injury part. That is
Hmm.
complex PTSD. Now you've got childhood developmental PTS and moral injury, and that makes for complex PTSD. And so that, of course, very much so makes you much more vulnerable to burnout, because those components are so similar. That cynicism, the exhaustion, the feeling of not having a purpose or not making a difference. Um, all of those things are going to make you way more susceptible to burnout. And ask me how I know. Been
Yeah.
there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? Um, but I think adjusting that filter is huge. Acknowledging the filter, acknowledging that the things that you went through, I don't think we can go through anything that isn't going to impact us or change our direction or trajectory in some way. Every single day, every single experience we have changes the direction of our life. And I know that sounds really silly, but I mean, you could make one wrong turn and get in a car accident. Whereas if you had taken the other one, you'd be fine. And that's maybe a
It
poor example,
happens.
but
No.
but it does. And I think when we experience adverse childhood experiences, we have a tendency to fragment ourselves, fragment our existence. We try to portray one thing to survive, and then on the
Yes.
inside or elsewhere, we have things that we feel like we need to cover up. We need to hide these things. And so we fragment ourselves. It's essentially compartmentalizing, which is what we're taught to do as law enforcement officers, work at work, home at home. And on the job for a shift, that might save your life. But that is not a sustainable way to live. That is not a sustainable way to heal because what that's doing to your nervous system is telling you that you're not safe in either one of those places. And so what you have to do is decompartmentalize. I think I actually wrote about this in the book. Decompartmentalize, bring everything back together, make yourself whole and complete again, or maybe realize that you always were. And that's how you can start to heal as a whole person and not as a fragmented version of yourself.
Yeah. And feeling, yeah, that is, but I think that we tend to get stuck in autopilot, especially
Mhm.
those who have dealt with different types of, you know, adverse experiences or trauma, or those who have, post traumatic stress or whatever the case is. I think any human being, well, there was a study, an article in 2005 by the National Science Foundation, and it did an overview of research regarding the daily number of thoughts a person has. The article indicated the average person has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. I know that's a huge gap, but 12,000 to 60,000. It said 80% of those thoughts were considered negative, and 95% of the thoughts were identical thoughts as the previous day. And I wrote
Yeah.
about this in Unconquered in the chapter Police Your Thoughts. And so let's think about that for just a second. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. No matter how rich you are, no matter
How
your
do you know that?
occupation,
You just,
I am well, I know that I have roughly, on average, life expectancy, roughly, I don't know. Well, there's a scripture in the Old Testament says, learn to number your days. Number your days. So,
hmm.
because it's, wisdom, number your days. And I'll have to pull up the exact scripture, but the average life expectancy in America is 73 or 78. We'll go with 78, 78 years, because I'll give myself an additional 5 years. And so that's 28,470 days. Um, 28,470. That means right now I have roughly 12,775 days remaining if I live to the average life expectancy in America. And so you break that down, 12,775 days. Well, there's 60 minutes in an hour, and there's 24 hours in a day. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. So if they're 1,440 minutes a day times 95%, 1,440 times 95%, that's 1,368 minutes in the day. I'm not awake all those, but 1,368 out of 1,440 minutes of the day, and those thoughts are all the same as yesterday. It's like
Mhm.
Groundhog Day in the most literal perspective. So if there's 12,000 thoughts, let's think about this for a second. 12,000 thoughts a day divided by 1,440, that's 8.3 thoughts a minute on the low end. That's 8 thoughts a
Right.
minute. That's a lot of thinking. At the high end, 60,000 divided by 1,440, that's 41.6 thoughts per minute. Most of those thoughts at 41.6 times 80%, 33 out of those 41 are negative.
Hmm.
Holy crap. Why
Yeah.
am I not sitting on the beach with a drink in my hand, watching the waves roll in, listening
Right.
to my kids play, or reading a
With your
book,
12,000 days left. Yeah.
whatever? Yeah, 12,447. Don't jip me, okay?
Oh,
And
sorry. Sorry. Whoa.
I'm just saying there's a point to be made here. I think we have to change the filter. And I know that we change the filter, we start looking at it through changing how we talk to ourselves. But I think it
Hmm.
really begins with looking at how much time do you really have left. You can't guarantee that you have another day. Today is a gift. So if we used to celebrate 50 as over the hill because we expected to live to 100, well, the average life expectancy is not 100, it's 78. So over the hill is 39. And
Oh,
so if
Lord.
you're 39 years old, you're halfway.
That's all I have 2.5 years until halfway.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to reality.
A
And
1-year-old. This
so,
is insane.
so how do we begin to shift from spending 80% of our thoughts in being negative and 95% of them the same as yesterday? It's insanity to expect something different from today if we have the same thoughts and same belief system as we had yesterday and expect
Hmm.
something different today. It's not going to
Right.
happen. And if we've only got 12,000 something odd days left for those in our 40s, on average 12,400, whatever, um, I think today is a great day to start changing that. And I want to
Yeah.
change it by being aware. Okay, now I'm aware that the thoughts I'm having are not producing the outcomes that I want. Not saying that you can think and things happen, but thinking is powerful. Your thoughts are powerful. Your beliefs are powerful. Your words are powerful. Scripture says there's
Hmm.
power of life and death in your words. And where do our words come from? Well, they come from our heart. So if your heart has been hardened because of those adverse childhood experiences, because of trauma, because of how people have betrayed you or rejected you or hurt you, the greatest thing you can do today is to begin to soften your heart with a practice of gratitude, to begin soften your heart and tenderize your heart again. And doing that through gratitude, doing that through recognizing I don't have the promise for another day. And if I'm going to live an average of 78 years, then I have to begin doing something different because I want the rest of my days to be better than the first of my days. I can't control what happened when I was 5 or when I was 15, but I can control what happens today on day
Hmm.
number 20, whatever thousand it is. I had it pulled up, but it's gone. So, whatever today's number is, I can do something
Yeah.
different today. And cynicism robs us, skepticism robs us of saying there is potentially a better way because you're questioning the motives that I'm sharing with you. You're questioning my motives. You're questioning the motives of people who are being kind to you. I'll tell you what I mean by that. When I was 5, I was first lured behind the barn by the neighbor with a cookie. So, guess what? I self sabotaged and sabotaged relationships as an adult anytime someone wanted to do something good for me. Because when they
Hmm.
lured me with a cookie, it led to being raped and sodomized and abused and molested and all these things. And it led to years of pain and embarrassment and shame and guilt. So there was some correlation in my mind and a filter that when someone was
Hmm.
kind to me or wanted to help me, it meant they wanted to hurt me.
Yeah.
Skepticism, cynicism robs me of beautiful relationships that could be the door or an opportunity or an introduction to a better tomorrow. And the reality is, changing our thoughts, we can't monitor all of our thoughts because most of them happen subconsciously. And so, how we
Right.
affect our subconscious is begin putting new things in there. Reading God's word, reading the Bible, praying, meditating, gratitude practices, it begins to shift us to a place where we are putting new things in to replace what's there. I hear a lot about affirmations, and affirmations are good, but do you really believe it? The problem is most of us don't
Right.
believe it. Do you
Right.
really
Yeah.
believe that you're lovable? You
Hmm.
are. Look at the proof.
Yeah.
You are. Do you really believe you're
But you
worthy
have
of
to
being
look
loved?
for the proof. You
You
have to
have to
look
look for
for
it,
the evidence.
and you have to
Stop
look for
looking
it through the
for
lens.
evidence of the contrary.
That's
Yes.
right. And we look for the
Yes.
evidence of the contrary. We look for the bad too often. And so, number your days. Know you only have a certain number of minutes today. You have the same amount of time today in your day as someone who's worth $8 billion. There's people who live completely different lifestyles. They are living the same amount of time. In fact, they are probably having some of the same number of thoughts. They are processing them differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Well, and that's
how do I change that? Aware?
that's the human brain.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
that's the
And being
human brain is
intentional.
we're wired for survival. And so we pick out the flaws and the defects because we want to avoid them. We want to fix them. We want to control them. And I think
Hmm.
that's a whole nother element is even if you have never experienced any ACEs, if you feel a sense of loss of control in your own life, then we start to try to control everything. We start to get attached to these outcomes. And the key there, and nobody likes to hear this, especially in the first responder world, is to surrender it. And
Oh
I
my goodness.
literally, I
Yeah.
say this to all of my coaching clients. You have to kind of like repeat this little statement in your head, and I hesitate to use the word mantra, but it basically it is. Um, Anytime you find yourself grasping to try to control everything and control the outcome, you have to remind yourself to release the expectation of the outcome.
Hmm.
Because even though we might be able to steer our bus in one way or another, we can't always control the result, right?
No.
Like we can't control the other cars on the road. We can't control the conditions of the weather. Like you have to release the expectation of the outcome because if you get so attached to it, you're you're robbing yourself of being happy in with any other possible outcome. So knowing that or having the confidence that you did everything you could to do it the right way, knowing that it may not always come out that same way. You may not be able to create the result that you're after.
Hmm.
But in my experience, when I've had instances that were less than favorable or not what I expected, in hindsight, every single time something didn't work out for me, tenfold came to me. So something, my law enforcement career ended. And I thought that was the worst thing in the world.
Hmm.
Never in a million years did I imagine that I'd be traveling the country and sitting here talking to you on a podcast and writing a book and all these other things. Never in a million years did I think I would have the ability to impact more people than if I had been on the road. I had so many other doors slammed in my face, but I was able eventually, because it's not easy, to release the expectation of the outcome. And now I just follow the path that's being laid for me. And so part of it is being able to be open to that idea,
Hmm.
to, whatever life has in store for you, whatever God has in store for you. So
Yeah,
surrendering, it's hard. It's very hard, but
on surrender, I think for me, what I've realized is that although I vocalized what I wanted in life, I want to see this, and I want to my dreams. I want to see certain things happen, and ambitions, and um, goals. The filter, the lens, and the experiences throughout my life that have shaped those lenses and filters have become a natural resistance to those things.
Mhm.
And we could say it consciously and be aware that I want to live life to the fullest. But internally, I'm providing resistance to every good thing God has for me. Why? Because I have got into sort of a routine of kind of being Groundhog Day every day. And I don't want to see kind of change, and it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And so we resist it because it's unfamiliar. We resist it because we're cynical. We resist it. You can be cynical towards God just like you are somebody else because you're questioning his motives. But when you
Yeah.
begin to truly understand, like I've questioned him, where were you when this? Where were you when this? Where were you when this happened? Where were you when this happened? The reality is, he's the reason I survived it. And we live in a world that is full of evil people, and that is the most absolute gross understatement you could ever use. Evil
Yeah.
is a EVIL, thank you, four letter word that like you can most of you have seen it. Many of you that are watching or listening
Mhm.
to this have seen it, you've witnessed it, but until you've experienced it,
Yeah.
and how deceptive and manipulative people can be, and how they will dress as sheep's and wolf's clothing, and how that shapes everything. So let me tell you, there's an enemy that despises you and hates you, and he wants to rob you of everything. He doesn't want you just to be poor in spirit, or broke and wounded, brokenhearted and wounded, and dealing with trauma and carrying all these burdens on your own. He wants you to fail to live up to your potential. He wants you to fail as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a person. And when I mean fail, I mean not show up. He wants you out of the picture because he sees the potential inside of you and the capacity
Mhm.
of love that you bear. You have a great capacity for love as a human being. And every time we allow trauma to live in us one more day, it's another hole in our vessel as um, a capacity for love. And we could pour love into others, or we can let it kind of leak out by trying to survive. And I choose to pour love into others because that is a way for me to say, you didn't win today.
Mhm.
Today, God wins. Today, I win. Today, my friends win. My family wins. My children, my wife, my peers are going to win because I'm going to love them. And when I get to a place where I'm no longer going to allow the things of the past to control me today. I choose love. I'm not going to let that stuff win anymore. So anyway, I've kind of gone off on a tangent, and I'm sorry, but um,
Well, no,
yeah,
but that makes sense because you have to have the highest form of love, in my opinion, the highest form of self-love is having discipline, having self-discipline to be able to heal and to stay after it and stick with hope even when days are hard. And
yeah,
so moving through our pain and having the discipline to be fortified and forged by it and polished by it instead of broken by it, I think that kind of discipline, loving your future self more than you do, even if you feel like you don't love yourself right now, loving your future self more than you do right now, that's what's going to let you, hold on to that love to be able to pour it out to other people.
yeah.
Right? So like you're making perfect sense to me. So
I I think how we shift. I guess I need to answer the question. Do you think adverse childhood experiences impact
I
Leo's
feel like
different
we
than the
did.
average for? Yes, I think it does. Yes, to answer the question, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, because
uh,
most people don't go into the kinds of positions
yeah,
most
they
people don't go
don't.
into positions where they're throwing themselves into a trauma-rich environment. They're throwing themselves into dangerous situations. Most people, if you're honestly, if you have a high enough ACEs score, you're you're beating the odds if you have a career.
Hmm.
Because, statistically, they're saying you should be a drug addict or homeless or not even here anymore. So,
Hmm.
and that's depending on your score. But I want to say this too is if you take that test and you, you know, tally up your score does not determine your outcome. Release the expectation of that outcome, right? Because you can beat the odds. You can refuse to be a statistic. You can, you know, you can look at that and if you realize that like, wow, I have an 8 out of 10, um, what does that mean for my life? It doesn't really mean anything. It gives you a benchmark to know like what you're up against. But if you're don't let it, pull you down. You are not your score. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as a caveat because I can see people going to take the ACEs test and be like, "Holy moly, what is wrong with me?" And the answer is nothing. The answer is you can overcome it.
Yeah, I don't know how many questions there are.
There's 10.
There's 10 questions.
Hmm.
Um, I've never taken it.
You might not want to
Yeah.
do that right now.
I've never taken it.
We'll do it off
Um,
air.
well, I think the get like stop resisting the good that's available to you, and that comes through surrender. We're so conditioned to
Yeah.
think that surrender is waving the white flag and like giving into the fight. And in this context, in this container,
Mhm.
surrender is releasing the resistance. What are we doing? What am I doing to holding the door shut? God is trying to call me to walk into. And why am I
Yeah.
holding it shut when he's saying, you have kept knocking and I'm trying to open the door and you're holding it shut?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm welcoming you in. Why don't you come in? I have been my greatest enemy because it has been here. Because every
Yeah.
time someone said, you have a gift, you have a gift, I say, you're such a fraud. You
Mm.
can't live up to the expectations. You can't live up to this stuff. You can't do this. You're nothing. And that is the voices from my childhood. And I'm telling you that I have chosen to no longer allow them capacity or place in my life. And I hope you'll join me. It is a revolution of fighting back against negative self talk. It is a new way to combat all the bullshit that has tried to destroy you from your childhood. I don't care if you're a veteran, if you're a first responder, if you're a corporate CEO, if you're by chance watching or listening to this and you are worth billions, I will tell you today that your worth has never been measured adequately, economically, or financially. Your worth has always been available by who and how you're willing to show up in love. Now, it can be measured, your financial worth will exponentially increase. Your ability to produce financial revenue will increase when you begin to see you as worthy. And I don't mean
Hmm.
this through ego. It's not through ego. It's not through ego. It's not through this like arrogance or cockiness. It's understanding just how powerful you are
Hmm.
because of your capacity as a human being and the impact you can have in this world through simple actions. So, like, all that sounds good. How do I change how I'm thinking? It changes by changing your habits. There are some things that require some disciplines, that require some changes. Like the day I sat in the patrol car, I believe I had an encounter with God. I had the gun to my head. I didn't pull the trigger. No duh. I'm here. But I still had to make some behavior changes. I had to make some changes. Instead of
Sure.
drinking every night, I started writing. And writing
Hmm.
became a way of healing. It became a part of my journey. And I don't think that there is a destination per se in on the journey of healing. There is, but it's eternal. I think it's a process. And I think
Yeah.
one day we arrive at a place of complete healing. So what does it look like? For me, it looks like, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be, an hour long process. If you're very busy, if you're new to this, I want you to begin by taking 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night, very, very intentional to pause and meditate and think on what I am grateful for today, right now. And now I want you to grab a piece of paper. It could be a tissue, a paper towel, a napkin, or a notebook or journal, whatever. And I want you to take a pen and write today, I am grateful for, and list it. And if all you can
Hmm.
muster is one thing, then write it down. But if you can muster two, but do it, try to do three. But if all you got is one, then write it down and begin to shift your focus from all the stuff that you see wrong to look and see what's right and what you have to be grateful for. Meditate. When I say meditate, I don't mean to empty your mind. That's not my approach to it. Mine is personally to find a scripture that resonates, that's like sticking with me is what I mean. Like it stays, it won't go away. And I sit and I think on it, I ruminate on it, and I think about what it means. And pray. I pray. And we could talk about that on another at another time, but I pray and I pray often. And praying does not, like for me, is not getting on my knees and folding my hands and bowing my head. Like it's a constant line of communication. And
Yeah.
it's through that abiding between me and God where all the other good takes place, because you can't
Yeah.
have fruit if you're disconnected from the vine. So anyway,
Ooh,
meditate,
that's a
gratitude
good line.
practice, meditate, gratitude practice, and prayer. and move your body. Go for a walk. It doesn't have you don't have to run 200 miles, but go walk a mile, go walk 2 miles, go walk a block, go walk down the driveway and back. Just
Mhm.
start. Just
Yep.
start and get the blood pumping, get this pumping, and start becoming more aware of the things that you're thinking and challenge them. Challenge them. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, and then I'll shut up. I promise, because I've been talking like forever. But Philippians 4:8. You don't have to be a Christian, but look at this. What do we think on? Whatever is true, lovely, noble, praiseworthy, excellent. Philippians 4:8 gives you a standard by what to think on. Okay. So if I'm sitting there thinking, I'm a piece of crap, dude. I am such a piece of crap. I have no hope for tomorrow. I am done. I don't know how I'm going to, this is impossible. What is the truth? What is the truth? Well, for a believer, it feels impossible. But Philippians 4:13, only a coffee cup here, says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, namely, endure. And most often, the power of God is not shown in the midst of a Sunday church service. It's shown in the life of an individual who got up again and continues to endure. And today, endure. If you're going through adversity, endure. If today sucks, endure. If the whole world is burning to hell around you, endure. Stand, endure, and see that tomorrow will be better. And so anyway, I don't know. You can I don't know that was burning inside of me. You started it. It's your fault. I blame you. So
This is why we have this. This is why we hit record because all of that stuff just comes out and it deserves a place to land. It deserves, a container, if you will. But no, I think that all of that it makes sense and it's wild that, we went from adverse childhood experiences all the way through how they impact us, what we can do about it, even if we don't have ACEs or, i- childhood issues, um, how just life can wear you down. But I think the important thing to remember is life happens in moments, and moment to moment, we have a choice. We have a choice to stand up, or we have a choice to lay down and let it steamroll us. So, you know, make the choice. And then after that, make the next right choice and then the next right move and just take it step by step. It doesn't have to be complicated. Oftentimes we overcomplicate things and that's where we get in trouble. Keep it simple and do the things that already know you're supposed to do, right?
yeah.
And try to initiate some stillness in your life because I think that's a huge issue for so many is we're just addicted to being busy. We're
Mm,
addicted to constant stimulation and just initiate that stillness. Let the dust settle in your brain, in your heart, in your spirit, in your life. Let the dust settle and see what comes up.
yeah.
And oftentimes, I think you'll be more than pleasantly surprised.
Well, my ACE score is 10 out of 10. So just thought I'd let you know
You really just sat there and did that.
through our talk.
So, so look at you. You, the odds were against you, but you refused to be a statistic. Here you are.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day. But yeah, I'm grateful. And look, when I say I'm grateful, it's not because I'm sitting over here counting Benjamins. Like I'm not sitting over here with gold-plated floors.
Are you sure? I mean, you can share.
Like I'm not sitting over here and everything is perfect. I'm
Right.
grateful literally because I'm breathing and I have another day. And someone will hear this message and someone will love themselves. They will love their family. They will love others, and they will go another day because I got another chance to do it again today. And I'm so grateful because I'm grateful because I've got so many opportunities to give and receive love and to experience peace in my heart and soul, to express gratitude, to tell someone how much I appreciate them and what they mean to me, and to show it. And there was a time that that wasn't even possible inside of me. And so,
Yeah.
thank you so much for asking the questions. I'm telling you, y'all don't get when we were having these conversations, and it was just coaching. It was like, I'm helping her
Yeah.
through her book, and it goes from, okay, well, you should probably do this to do this, to like we start having these conversations like you just heard. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could have had some of those recorded because you might have got something out of it. I don't know, other than thinking this dude just rambles. I don't know what his deal is. And um anyway, thank you for being thank you for bringing this up and for suggesting doing this. This is the second episode. Um, and when AK said let's do this, I said let's try it for a few episodes and let's see what people think. Let's see if people like it. Let's see if you want to
Yeah.
continue doing this, because you may get through
Right.
about three or four and say, I don't think I want to do this. So anyway, so thank you. I
I
enjoyed
mean,
it.
we'll probably be talking anyway, so why not
Yeah,
just keep it
may as
going?
well just put it out there. All right. Well, listen, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, wherever you are. If you have a question that you would like to submit, send it to info at theadamdavis.com. AK and I will review them. We cannot guarantee we'll get to all of them, but please send them in. And if you have a question, we will not reveal your identity to anyone. It will be anonymous. Um, we will try to respond to each of your emails. I can't guarantee we can read all the questions because, as you see, one question took the entire episode, and most of that's my fault. But listen, I would like to say thank you to our sponsor today. Your sponsor today is your favorite sponsor. You want to guess who it is? It's me. And I am telling you about the book Unconquered. And I have a few signed copies in my office. Send a message to that same email or hit us up on social media. Happy to get you a signed copy out today. This gives you the Unconquered code. It tells you how I have survived being a 10 out of a 10 on an ACEs score, and I'm not in a ditch somewhere. I'm not dead. I'm not an addict to illegal narcotics, although I am breaking my addiction to nicotine as we speak. I've already gotten off of tobacco altogether, so I'm not an alcoholic. I'm in recovery. I'm not an active alcoholic. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our sponsors. And yeah, this has been good. This has
Yeah.
been good. How can
I'm
people
glad you
connect with
agreed.
you?
akdozanti.com. Pretty
That's right.
simple. All my
That's right.
socials are linked up there. I'm on the TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. So
I'll
just
put it in the show
akdozanti.com.
notes. I'll put it in the show notes, and reach out if we can ever be of assistance to you. AK is a coach. She is a first responder wellness coach. She does a phenomenal job. And if you know, I'll put the contact information in the show notes. But listen, we'll see you next time. Hopefully, you'll join us next week. God bless.